In sooth, I know not why I am so sad. The first line of William Shakespeare's The Merchant of Venice, arguably the most prescribed text in school syllabuses across the world, most prescribed of all Shakespearean texts, because it does not have the sharp tragic edge of his great tragedies, which may not be suitable for younger minds. At the same time, it also doesn't go deep into the problematic erotics of, say, plays like Antony and Cleopatra. In short, The Merchant of Venice is a comfortable choice between tragedy and comedy. That is why it has often been said to be a tragicomedy, though critics differ on this. Now, I would like to say a few things about this play, which is a favorite of mine too. First of all, look at the ambiguous title. Unlike Hamlet, the Prince of Denmark, or Othello, the Moor of Venice, or King Lear, for example, where we can directly identify the hero or the protagonist, here we cannot. The Merchant of Venice. Whom is Shakespeare referring to? Is it Antonio, who is the Merchant of Venice? Or is it Shylock? In fact, in one of the original versions, the subtitle was Shylock. If I'm not terribly mistaken, I'll give the reference below. But it is wise that it has been a wise act that the direct reference has been removed. So it has become all the more interesting. We do not know with whom Shakespeare's sympathies lie. Is it with Antonio or is it with Shylock? Opinions have greatly differed even in the West. At some point of time, it was said that Shakespeare was very sympathetic to the Jew. When we were celebrating the humanist version of Shakespeare, say, had not a Jew eyes, had not a Jew ears, etc., etc. Those famous dialogues of Shakespeare. Anti-Semitism was very much prevalent even then in Europe, even in England. But of late, the recent views are not exactly the same as this. For example, a very handy critical book today is Andrew Sanders' Short Oxford History of English Literature. There, Professor Sanders has said that to the contemporary Elizabethan audience, Shylock would just have been a comic figure. And that is what Shakespeare had in mind, he wanted to say. However, I do not agree. Shakespeare, had great human sympathies. Even if his immediate target was to put down the Jew to please the public, he has maneuvered the plot and rather maneuvered the language, not the plot, in certain ways that we cannot not have some sympathy for Shylock. Even in spite of all the greatness of Antonio, we come to know that he used to even spit on Shylock because he was a Jew. So this kind of religious hatred is not conducive to a secular human society. In this regard, we can refer to Professor Harold Bloom, who has recently passed away. Again, arguably the most famous Shakespearean critic of recent times. In fact, I call him a reincarnation of Dr. Johnson. So, Harold Bloom's book, he has many books. One that I am referring to is Shakespeare, The Invention of the Human. He says Shakespeare was the first secular writer who gave us a religion without God. And what is that religion? Humanism. Of course, humanism was not Shakespeare's original kind of invention. There has been Renaissance humanism, Christian humanism, but Shakespeare made it very secular. And I would say the languages of protest put in the mouth of Shylock is a marker of this secularism, who, in spite of being Jew, did not fail to attract Shakespeare's sympathy. His daughter also deserts him, etc., etc. And at last, he is terribly, what we can say, is devastated in spite of his ploys and plots. Is it Shylock who is entirely responsible for his schematizing? Or is it the hatred that is meted out to him and his community that leads him to do this? This is a very serious question. I don't think very many people have tried to look at it this way. It relates us to the general question of the origins of crime. Are criminals born, or do society create criminals? Very interesting. Second part is, of course, that well-known difference. Second part of my argument is that well-known difference between the two worlds, the world of Belmont and the world of Venice. That also have to remember. World of Venice is apparently full of love, where Portia is there and Bassanio goes as suitor and all the suitors go, whereas Venice, now devastated by the pandemic, is a kind of city of business. But again, if we look at it minutely, these worlds are not so unrelated as it appears to be. Most of the suitors that go, they possibly do not go to woo Portia for her beauty only. There are material implications, material Shakespeare, cultural materialism part. That also we have to uncover. Even Bassanio has lost quite a few ships at sea, and he asks for the help of Antonio for the last time, with which he believes to regain all that he has lost. That is, he wants to be sponsored to go to Venice to go to Belmont to woo Portia, and if she can win Portia, then he can rebuild his fortune. That means indication at the wealth that Portia possesses. And then the third point, of course, the deep friendship between Antonio and Bassanio, that also has been pointed out. There are obvious, homosexual implications, that Antonio was actually in love with Bassanio, and Bassanio also reciprocates in language. To whom I most owe in love and honor, something like that he says about Antonio. The fact that Bassanio will go to woo Portia is what makes Antonio sad. That is the most possible cause. He was aware that he is going to woo Portia, so that's why the first line, "In sooth I know not why I am so sad." Now, whether Bassanio was really in love with Portia is a different question. Portia was in love, but whether Bassanio was in love is a very difficult question. So that's why Shakespeare in love is important, but Shakespeare on love is much more important. It's very intricate. He was one of the earliest persons to show that love is highly political. Though critical theory was born, say, 500 years, 400 years after Shakespeare, but he was very much aware that it is a highly political thing. So, and then in Elizabethan world, marriages and love were radically different. The ideal courtly love was always for other person's wife. So marriages were, especially in high societies, purely for political gains and empowering the social position, status for both the parties. Very much like Indian arranged marriages. But so marriage was on one side and love on one side. So whether Bassanio marries Portia out of love, quote unquote, that is very important. That you have to judge for yourself. I have given these three tropes. Not very original, but I have tried to bring in some difference by some theoretical intervention. So I hope with this you can, especially this is addressed to students, you can have a look at the play once again with a bit more enriched vantage point or more enriched critical perspective, we can say. And thank you very much.